still talking about climate change up at EKSE Live, and if you have just joined us, then you're right on time for a conversation here. It's everything climate change, how we as individual citizens can make sure to be combat to global warming and climate change. And if you're not informed about climate change, you'd like to know more about it, then make sure you do not move an inch. We have our experts who's going to be telling us more about the topic here today and how it affects us on a daily basis. Because I think we take weather patterns and the changes in our climate change very lightly. We think, just because it's hot today and tomorrow it's cold, like, that's normal, it's fine, and it's not normal at all. So myself and Lauren are sitting down with Gable Claassen, who is a representative from African Climate Alliance, who's going to be telling us more about how this climate change, or rather global warming, affects us on a day-to-day basis.
So jumping right into it, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Tell us first, what is African Climate Alliance all about?
So African Climate Alliance is a youth-led grassroots movement-based organization. It's a lot of words, but we act and advocate for social and climate justice because we believe that you can't have just fighting for the environment. You've got to fight for people's justice as well. It's bigger than us. It's about us all looking toward a future that we want to live in. So we work on education, action, advocacy, and adaptation to achieve that future that we want.
So maybe perhaps tell us about some of the work that you do on a day-to-day basis, the practical work of you guys. What do you guys do within the organization?
So our core is education. We really believe that in South Africa especially, there's a big difference in what people know and what people don't know.
Yes.
And I think even in your intro here, it's just kind of like talking about the reality of, we take it lightly. We take climate change lightly. We step outside, it's climate change. It's just, that's weather. Climate change is the pattern change over time and how it affects us in the future. And so building and bridging those gaps is so important to us. From there, we work with young people and we try to help them understand that topic a bit more, help them engage certain policies and decision making so that when we take to the ground and we mobilize, like we have this last September, a part of, Fridays for Future's global movement, we don't want people to just rock up there and be asked, so why are you here? Oh, because I got into the taxi. Like, no, I'm here because I'm here to fight for my environment. I'm fighting for my future. And so that's really how we work, is through education building, showing people how they use their voice and then taking action.
I think it's such a difficult thing, we were chatting about it earlier as well. The reality is with certain climate change, for example, if you don't see it here and now, it's very difficult as a society for us to care about it. Oh, it'll happen in 100 years, it doesn't matter. Or, it'll only affect my kids, it won't affect me, it's fine. How do we get out of that mentality? How do we break through this reality of, even if it doesn't affect me right now, it is so important?
I think the reality is that actually it does affect us right now. We just don't know it. I think we always think climate change means melting ice caps and it means polar bears dying, and we're like, but we don't have polar bears here in South Africa, that's fine. But we have droughts, we have floods, we have wildfires. Those are all social injustices. But if we look deeper into it, it's actually affected because of climate change. And so we are facing climate change and the harms of climate change. Many of us in South Africa face it at the forefront. And so it's helping bridge that gap of actually the social injustice you're facing is also a relation to climate injustice that you're facing.
And I do know that, as citizens, yes, we all have a responsibility, but I think the bigger responsibility is on the government because policy is very important. Policies like law, it guides what we do and how we do it.
Legal evil coming
through.
Yes,
you understand what I'm saying? So talk to us about the policy transformation that still needs to be done within our country to ensure that we are combating climate change and global warming.
So many of us might have heard of a big term called the just transition. And it pops up here and there and you're like, okay, I think I know what it means, but just to quickly make it clear, it's just means equitable, which means trying to give people what they need, not what they want, so that they can move forward. And that's where the transition part comes in, moving from the bad and the current to a future that we all want and can live in. And so an equal transition to a future that's defined by us all. And so when we talk about policy implementation and all of those things, it's a lot of complicated jargon. But to the reality and to the core of it is that people in power, or rather our decision makers, because I believe we are the people in power, decision makers need to act on what our needs are so that we can move forward. They know what the reality is on the ground because they've seen it.
Yes.
We've seen glimpses of it, we've seen mass impacts of it, we've seen in KZN with the floods, in other spaces. I think a big thing that needs to happen right now is for the science to be trusted, for people's realities to be acknowledged and trusted, and then for action to come forward. Our government needs to stop being complacent and complicit and just sit by. They need to take action, or we are going to force them to do that as a mass, as a group.
Yes.
I think that you hit on something very important, you know, that there's only so much we can do in our personal capacity, but something like policy pushing to the people in the power that be, you know. How do you dispel, how do you dispel any myths around, global warming isn't real, you see it's hot today, so it can't be, you know, cold somewhere else. How do you sort of get people out of that mindset and get them involved?
So I think a big thing we've noticed over the last few years is a lot of information that's misinformation popping up on social media.
Yes.
And so
Fake news.
fake news, we've heard the term. I was trying to avoid it. But a big thing is trying to just really base everything that you're doing and saying in fact. And that fact can be either backed up by science or backed up by someone who's living the experience in that moment. And so it's really about not, fighting and shouting at a wall, and you're not going to get anywhere with a brick wall fighting it, but really saying, this is the information. If you're ready to read it, read it. Otherwise, everyone else, you've seen the information, let's move forward.
Yeah.
It's not fighting until the end to a dead cause, but rather working with the people that want to work with you and move forward. Obviously, like for example, my grandparents, it was very difficult to tell them and explain to them that actually what they saw on social media isn't reality, because it's like, no, they spend all day on social media.
Yeah.
So we have to cut you off there. It has been such an incredible conversation. It's been such an incredible conversation. We hope that this has inspired you to do a little bit of Googling.